Hello everyone, in this video I'll be showing you the most overpowered Gale build guide in patch 8 of Baldur's Gate 3. Now I've been playing around with a bunch of different builds and using the Bladesinging Wizard, which is a very powerful class for getting an extra attack at level 6 and full spell casting. We can combine this with something else to make a very powerful class. I've been testing this out for a while, happy to report how powerful it is. Now our first cantrip that we want to take is Booming Blade. This is just incredible. We're going to be getting our subclass at level 2 and then that extra attack at level 3. I also recommend taking Bone Chill and either Ray of Frost, reduce target's movement speed. If you're running away, this can reduce their movement speed and help you get away, or Shocking Grasp to get away if someone, if you don't want to get hit with an opportunity attack. Now, as for spells, we're always going to be having Shield and Magic Missile. Thunderwave is also nice for the pushback, and I do like Find Familiar as the Ravens are extremely useful early game. Long Strider is also nice, giving that increased movement speed is very useful. And for the last spell, you can go with either Fog Cloud or Ice Knife, as if you're silenced, you can still cast this. Chromatic Orb being another good choice too to cover all elemental damage types. As for our ability scores, I think it's best to go with 16 intelligence and dexterity, as we're going to be getting up into the combat often as we're melee class and spell caster hybrid. So dexterity for better initiative, armor class, you name it. We also want to have a decent bit of constitution, so that'll be our ability score spread, and then also a few points into wisdom for saves and charisma as well. I'll be covering better gear options as well as combat later on in this video, but at level 2 we get to take our subclass and we're going to go with the Bladesinging Wizard. Now this gives us the Blade Song, which adds our proficiency bonus to our armor class. We'll get a nice +4 to AC, increase our movement speed by 3 meters, and we get a proficiency bonus added to constitution saving throws, so we're not going to be breaking any concentrations. This goes great with things like the Strange Conduit Ring, which gives us additional psychic damage on attacks whenever we have a concentration. We also get proficiency in light armor and then any of these weapons. Now rapiers, short swords are two of the better choices. We can also go with long swords to get Fowler Alluve early game. That's one of the best choices there. Now we also get a couple more spells, so we can take like Ice Knife, and Mage Armor is also quite good too. And we'll prepare the following spells. I like to go with Magic Missile, Shield, Thunder Wave, Find Familiar, and Mage Armor, because early game you're not going to have great armor choices. At level 3, we get level 2 spells. Now, Misty Step has a lot of value here because bonus action teleport, you can get away, survive, and Shadowblade. We want to take this a little bit later on whenever we're starting to focus more on melee versus just casting, but Shadowblade is extremely strong. 2d6, 2d8 of psychic damage, and this will be upcast to 48. Psychic damage is pretty powerful. We'll also take Scorching Ray here for our next leveled spell. At level 4, we get another cantrip, and I would recommend Firebolt because sometimes you just need to explode things, so we'll go with that. Now for our next level spell, Cloud of Daggers is nice, and we'll take our Shadowblade here. Also have some spells from scrolls, but we'll prepare Shadowblade and also Hold Person. That's another really nice spell to have, so we'll add that to our list here. You can take out Find Familiar and go with something like that. You can take Hold Person if you didn't previously take it. And for our feat at level 4, I would recommend just boosting up our intelligence to 18. It's going to be the most optimal as we get better spell casting out of it. At level 5, we get ourselves access to level 3 spells, with Fireball and Lightning Bolt being two very good ones. Haste is another nice one, as is Counterspell. So we already got Haste there, but basically we're going to be taking our Fireball and Lightning Bolt spell just to be able to cover a bit more damage. So that works pretty well there at level 5. And into level 6, this gives us our extra attack. This is a big power spike, so this is extremely useful, and this is when we want to start using our Shadowblade. We can also take our counter spell here, and Glyph of Warding is another nice one, or Fear, whichever of those you prefer. I'd recommend preparing counter spell. You never know when you're going to need it, but you're going to want it when you do need it. So we'll also be learning more spells from scrolls, which I'll show off near the gear section. But once we make it to level 7, Ice Storm is extremely valuable. This doesn't require concentration, and it makes ice surfaces, which are a form of crowd control, giving us a nice opening. I also like Confusion for a spell. Minor elementals have a lot of value. And if you're the Band of the Mystic Scoundrel, you can use Greater Invisibility as a bonus action after attacking. So we got a lot of great choices. I think that the minor elementals work great at this level, and we'll prepare our Ice Storm just because it's just extremely useful. At level 8, we get access to, again, some more level 4 spells and an extra feat. I'd recommend taking the Greater Invisibility and Confusion. Greater Invisibility is useful for outside of combat versatility, so that's a nice one to have. I'd recommend preparing maybe the minor elementals if you like them. They're just extremely useful for drawing aggro away from you. Confusion's another good spell you can go with though, but we'll also be preparing more later on. And we'll boost our intelligence all the way up to 20 at this point. And once we make our way to level 9, we get access to level 5 spells, with some great ones being Cone of Cold, Conjure Elemental, Hold Monster being another great one, and there's many others here that we could go with, but I'd recommend having both of these prepared. Conjure Elemental is very valuable. The Water Elemental can create chilled on target, giving them a weakness to any type of cold damage. Now level 10, we get the Song of Defense. Whenever we're in Blade Song, if we get attacked by an attack, let's say it's going to do 20 damage to us. We can use a spell slot level 4 and it'll reduce 5 times that spell slot's level from our health. So we wouldn't get any damage from that. So it's very nice for survivability, although you do burn through your spell slots quickly. For our next level spell, it's your personal preference. We can go with Ray of Frost there. And we'll take Hold Monster, extremely valuable spell late game. And something like Cloud Kill could be nice if you have a team built around it, because Cloud Kill you can hide out in if you have Hero's Feast, because then you can't get affected by Cloud Kill. So that is a quite nice choice if you wanted to go that route. But even Wall of Fire is another good kind of crowd control-y like spell, so we can go with that, or even Fear from earlier levels. And we'll prepare that like that. Now here's where we got an option. We can continue. This will give us level 6 spells, but the ones that we want, like Chain Lightning, Globe of Invulnerability, and otilukes Freezing Sphere, we can all learn from scrolls. If we add in a caster or a half caster, this lets us do it. So if we add in the fighter, we wouldn't get this. However, we can add in the Paladin, and hear me out on this. Paladin's going to give us smites at level 2. We can use our spell slots to upcast smites, dealing a ton of extra damage. And with the Paladin, I wouldn't fully recommend using its spells for casting, but we got the options here. Oath of the Crown gives our proficiency bonus to attack rolls, so we can get a nice little bonus to make sure that we do land our attacks. Or the Oath of Vengeance gives the Inquisitor's Might. Now, what's nice about the Inquisitor's Might, you can daze targets with this. It only gives us 1 radiant damage, which is not much, but dazing a target is massive, because with that, we can land things like Hold Person more easily. It's entirely up to you. Take the Oath of the Crown if you don't want to, or if you don't care about spending money to give your oath. You don't really need an oath here. We're just using this for its level 2 ability. And the fact that this will give us full spell progression, because this is a half caster, so our casting level gives us a level 6 spell. Now we get ourselves Divine Smite. This is extremely powerful. Make sure you turn on your reactions because it's powerful. And we also get a fighting style. So this is dependent entirely on, if you're going with clothing, take dueling. If you're going with a light armor option, go with defense. I'm going to just go with dueling here for a flat out increase to our damage. As for the spells, you could take the Bless, I guess, or even some of the smites. They're not super useful, but they're there. They're options. We got them. Even Wrathful Smite's not a terrible one. I love Command, but it's just not going to land if we got... you can kind of land it. We got gear that's going to help out with that. So I'll show off the best gear options here now. And there's a couple good ones. Now, just wearing clothing, we can get our armor class up to 23. We could get that to 25. We took 2 dexterity increases instead, but Mage Armor is giving this to us because with the Robe of the Weave, this gives us a +2 armor class. We also get a +1 to spell save DC and spell attack rolls. This is clothing. We do have the ability to wear light armor. If you want to focus on not using Shadowblade, you could use the Ballist armor because that'll apply vulnerability, and we could do things like the Duelist Prerogative, which does piercing damage. So that is a nice option. However, Shadowblade will be the most OP version of this, so Shadowblade is really nice to have. Now, I like the Hood of the Weave for the bonus to spell save DC and spell attack rolls. And I'm also using the Bracer to defense because this gives you a +2 to armor class if you're not wearing armor, and we're not. And this will also give us, if we're not wearing a shield, which we can when we're blade singing. So that gives us the nice +2 to armor class. However, to give us maximum power, if we want to be a very versatile spellcaster, the Gloves of the Battle Mage's Power. Whenever you hit a spell, this target with a spell or cantrip that uses a weapon, you gain Arcane Acuity. Where this becomes massive is Shadowblade as an attack counts, Divine Smites counts twice, and if you do all this together, we can get a +10 to our spell save DC very quickly. And our spell save DC is around a 20 right now, which is not bad. Paladin's only 15, but we get that up to 25 and 30 respectively. On top of that, we have some more powerful spells like Otilukes Freezing Sphere that we can learn, and Chain Lightning that we can also learn. So then you can go ahead and prepare these spells by taking off something that you maybe don't use as much, like Confusion. We can take Otilukes Freezing Sphere. And then if you don't like using that, we can take Chain Lightning too. I don't recommend taking 2 level 6 spells, and it's nice to always have a Globe of Invulnerability ready too. But we're mostly going with the Cloak Protection and the Evasive Shoes just to boost up our armor class. If you want, you can also go with like the Boots of Stormy Clamor if you got a Lithid ability, because that will apply conditions on the target. I also like the Strange Conduit Ring. I mentioned this previously. So when concentrating on a spell, our weapon attacks deal an additional 1 to 4 psychic damage. So that's really nice just to have that extra damage on the attacks. Ring of Protection will bring our armor class up to 21. We did have 23 with the Bracer to defense. And then 23 would go upwards to 27 when we have our Blade Song active, because that gives us a +4 to our armor class. And then that 27 would be a 29 if we used haste on ourselves. So yeah, this can become pretty strong pretty quickly. What if we also wanted to swap this out and use the Ballist armor? That's another choice too. You can also use the Vest of Soul Rejuvenation, because this gives you an unarmed strike against an attacker. And then our unarmed strike is a little bit, you can use, basically, if you have an unarmed strike, that's like a weapon attack. So that's another option you could go with if you wanted something a little bit different. And I feel like this is it's meant for the monk, but it can also be meant for the wizard because it's at the sorceress sundries in Act 3. So it just makes sense. Most using the amulet of greater health, although there's some other ones like the spine shutter amulet. This gives a reverberation on the target. Spell savant amulet gives us additional spell slots. So use the best available at the time of this. Psychic spark can also be nice to give yourself additional magic missile, but I think this works pretty well. So we're going to be able to stack up Arcane Acuity really easily with this. You could also use the helmet of Arcane Acuity if you wanted to in Act 2. That's really good too, because this does, if you do a weapon attack, you get the Arcane Acuity for 2 turns, which is really nice. But even just the Hood of the Weave giving us that flat out +2 is nice for, basically, if you wanted to use the Paladin spells, like, we could hypothetically go ahead here and take like Command instead if you wanted to. Because even though we have a 14 spell save DC, Arcane Acuity will give us a 24, which is not bad per se. But yeah, this is what it looks like, and I'll show you what it looks like in combat. I guess another thing I'll note first is if you want to use Shadowblade, take a staff like the Staff of Spell Power, use its Arcane Battery, take Shadowblade, upcast it to its max level, and this will give you the more powerful version of Shadowblade. So you can see there, 48 of psychic damage, and yeah, that's going to be the best that we got available. On top of all that, the Bladesinging also allows you to use an offhand weapon. Dolor Amaris is really good because this will give you additional 7 damage on a critical hit, so this can basically help you with one-shotting a lot of people. You can also use Orin's Dagger in the offhand for a better armor class, but this is pretty strong as is. So first things first, once we get into combat, I'd recommend applying Bladesong right away. And it's also beneficial to stay in Bladesong, even though you get 4 of them per long rest. The Bladesong Climax is not that powerful, I'll be honest, so you can go with that. We can also add the Righteous Clarity to ourselves if we're having a hard time hitting creatures in combat. But what do you guys see here? This is looking to me like a very nice Fireball or Ice Storm, or even if you wanted to go all out and otilukes Freezing Sphere, you could bump out one of these and set up crowd control. Now, the whole reason for that would be the crowd control purposes. Otilukes Freezing Sphere is overkill for that. We'll just go with an Ice Storm to start things off and try to make it so that you don't slip on the ice yourself. But this is a great form of crowd control. If we had Confusion still slotted, we could go with that. But now that we got our crowd control set up, the next step that we want to take is making sure that we can deal some damage. Now, Booming Blade can be used per action, so we can go ahead with Booming Blade for our first attack. That's going to be overkill. We needed just a single point to be able to take them out. I should have probably used it on this target, but another thing, we want to have the Resonance Stone in our pocket, so I don't currently have it there, but with the Resonance Stone, this will actually make it so that everyone takes double psychic damage. Now they all have the the weakness to psychic damage, so then when we go ahead with an attack, we have advantage on it. We're going to give 44. That was pretty good. And then the offhand attack almost took another 1 health left. That's so close. But that's pretty good first turn. And that's exactly why we set it up, because prone, and prone. And 4 prones in a row. It's perfect. We can also counterspell. I would recommend counterspelling only whenever you need to stop like command or hold person, because those are devastating. A healing spell is not super crazy, so we can let that happen. So that was a lot of people going prone. Booming Blade, very powerful. We always want to be using that per turn. 92 and 26. That's the beauty of Dolor Amaris. And then we can follow this up with a Divine Smite, and this is likely enough to take them out. 52 and 12. Yep, that was perfect. So huge. And then what's on top of that is we get that extra damage if we have a concentration. So now that we got Arcane Acuity stacked up, we get a +5. It's not as crazy as it can be, but that gives us a better spell save DC so that we can hit like our whole person much more freely. 99% chance, perfect. If we had the Band of the Mystic Scoundrel on, we could also have used the Band of the Mystic Scoundrel. But I also like Wall of Fire, because with this, if you can find a good way to line it up, that can actually force, it's a form of crowd control. But we can also just go with the whole person or some of the other spells here. So I'm going to use, I guess, Wall of Fire here just to force them away from here. That's probably not the best use. Actually, a Lightning Bolt right down here, 4 targets hit. You always want to maximize the amount of targets you can hit. If a Fireball or a Lightning Bolt can hit multiple targets, you may as well take that, because it's just going to be, it's easy to stack up that much damage. And for our bonus action, I guess I'll stack Righteous Clarity on myself there. Usually you want to use this on whoever has Great Weapon Master or Sharpshooter, because they're not going to have a high chance of hitting, and we can circumvent that with this. Now we have a large group of people all together here, so Otilukes Freezing Sphere is probably the best choice. Chain Lightning is also quite great. because we can hit a ton of people. So the otilukes freezing sphere, I feel like if you know how good it is, you know it's an incredible spell. If you don't, you're going to see it right here. Boom, crowd control set back up. We actually didn't take anybody out like I thought we would, but that's a problem that Booming Blade and Divine Smite can solve. So 70 damage on that one. I guess I'll just run back and Divine Smite this fool here. And, oh, I should upcast that. 52, yeah, one more upcast would have been perfect, but we also got offhand attacks, so might be enough to be able to take them out. We got advantage. Boom, critical hit. That's exactly what we needed. 2 more prone, and this is exactly why we have counterspell, to shut down any type of command spells, which are very devastating, because if you got concentrations, goodbye concentrations. Once again, we got a nice lineup here. So if we hit them with a lightning bolt, that's 4 targets hit, so we may as well take that, and that's pretty good damage. We're able to take out the furthest away, which is always a pain to deal with. And we can then go with something like, you could use a hold person, because there's multiple targets here that we could actually impact with that. So hold person is extremely good. We'll roll with a hold person upcast that we can stop 3. I guess there's 4 targets that we need to stop. That's fine. We'll just go with the 3 there, and we'll hold person all of them. And since we had a nice spell save, or arcane acuity there, we had a much higher spell save DC, 26. It's hard to resist. And then we can always just do a bonus offhand attack here, and that's gonna be a free crit. The nice thing about the free crits is the Dolor Armaris actually stacks up that extra damage. And since they're all victims of hold person, there's not much they can do right now. So that's what we got our Booming Blade for. So this should hit extremely hard. 116 and 34. Yeah, it hits hard. We're not going to risk the ice there to try and hit those targets. So you also have magic missile to use too. That's actually, you know what? We'll risk it. We'll try it. We'll try it. If I slip, yeah, goodbye hold person. That was not smart. Note to self, don't run on ice. Luckily, they just ran right up to us, so that's a Booming Blade for you, that's a Divine Smite for you. So, yeah, huge damage. That is what I think to be the most overpowered Gale build in Baldur's Gate 3. You're a spellcaster, you're a melee attacker. It's a lot of fun. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Don't break your oath. And I'll see you all in the next video. Hit the subscribe button if you enjoyed.